Hello, this is Coding Gicha for full-stack developers. In the previous lesson, I explained how to manage your Vim configuration by adding a new Git repository's remote address using vimmy. However, you can also create a new empty Git repository, clone it, and work directly from there. In other words, adding a new empty Git repository as a remote address and then pushing your Vim configuration can be done by cloning the Vim configuration from the Git repository. Overall, cloning from a Git repository is more frequent. Let's run vimmy status to check the status of the Vim configuration files. Currently, I'm managing the .vim directory as a Git repository to manage the entire configuration, including Vim packages, via Git. The .vimrc file is a symbolic link to the vimrc.vim file in the .vim directory, which is also managed using Git. Therefore, the .vimrc file is also managed using Git. Therefore, even if your Vim configuration is completely removed or you're in a new environment, you can retrieve the same Vim configuration from the Git repository. The current Vim configuration is already somewhat set, but let's set it to its original state with vimmy clear. If you run vimmy status, you'll see that the .vim directory is not managed as a Git repository. Indeed, the .vim directory has been removed. The .vimrc file has also been removed, so opening it in Vim will reveal an empty file. Even if your Vim configuration isn't set up yet, you can quickly and easily reconfigure it from a Git repository by simply running vimmy init. From a Git perspective, there are differences between initializing Git and adding a Git repository remote address and cloning a Git repository. However, from a vimmy perspective, both processes initiate Vim configuration management, so the same init options are used. Enter the repository address to manage with Git. If you use multiple accounts on a Git server with the same domain, authentication issues may arise. Specifying the username before the domain address can prevent conflicts. Personally, I prefer registering a local account over a global one even if it's inconvenient. If you want to configure it globally, you can omit the username and email address. The Git branch information is required when initializing Git and adding a Git repository remote address. However, after syncing with a Git repository or cloning a Git repository, you can omit the Git branch information without any problems. In vimmy 2.6, I plan to improve the process so that Git branch information is only required when initializing Git and adding a remote address for a Git repository, since the local Vim configuration is set up while not managed by Git. Furthermore, Git branch information will no longer be tracked in the vimmy.cfg file. Since the .vimrc file uses the default filename managed in the .vim directory, simply press Enter. This process is not much different from the process of starting a new Git repository, which I covered in the previous lesson. The only difference is that a list of added packages is displayed, but the package status is set to require initialization and the package directories are empty. This is because submodules are not retrieved when running git clone. Let's also use vimmy update to retrieve package files. The update option can also be used simply as vimmy update not only retrieves files from the repository that manages the Vim configuration, but also updates submodules. If there are any added packages when you run vimmy init, they always need to be initialized. Therefore, if git submodule update is also run when you run vimmy init, there's no need to run vimmy update separately. In vimmy 2.6, I'll improve the process so that Vim packages are retrieved with vimmy init alone. Open the .vimrc file. All of the previously configured settings are identical. I'll apply my personal preferences for packages and settings. Vimmy is a wrapping tool for the Git commands, managing your Vim configuration entirely through Git. Therefore, executing some management tasks directly with Git commands will not cause any issues in vimmy. Conversely, if you primarily manage your Vim configuration with Git and some tasks with vimmy, there will be no issues with Git either. I'll handle all my personal favorite additional Vim packages all at once using the Git commands. Considering the installed packages, I'll also copy my personal preferred settings from the coding Gicha site. I'll paste them into the vimrc.vim file. Any changes to the vimrc.vim file will be reflected in the .vimrc file, and any changes to the .vimrc file will also be reflected in the vimrc.vim file. It doesn't matter which file you edit. Let's save and check the changes without restarting Vim. Since I opened the home directory /vim/vimarc.vim file, you shouldn't use a %sign after the source command, you should use the .vimrc file in the home directory. Some settings have changed, but some require a Vim restart to properly apply the changes. I've configured the Vim buffet tabs to not display when only one file is open. The nerd tree toggle shortcut, registered with the F9 key, also works well. When you open another file, the files in the buffer are displayed in tabs. As mentioned earlier, some settings require a Vim restart to take effect. The remaining settings will be covered in detail in a separate video, grouped by related settings. Let's check the status with vimmy. There are changed Vim configuration files in local Git. You can check the status of newly added packages in the modified vimrc.vim file. I'll push this information to the Git repository to reflect the changes. Let's use vimmy-s to check if the Vim configuration files have been pushed to the Git repository properly. The Vim configuration settings you've configured so far are now also stored in the Git repository. With the help of vimmy, managing your Vim configuration has become much easier.